the age of a sedentary lifestyle, the age of agriculture and animal husbandry began. It was the biggest revolution in the history of mankind. When the man set out on that journey, there was no turning back, but it was not a pleasant journey either. Agriculture and animal husbandry is not a better and pleasant and quality way of life than hunting and gathering. Quite the opposite. Hunters and gatherers actually have a lot more time, work less, rest more and eat better. Farmers have to work a lot and eat poorly, because they eat 5 to 6 different things as opposed to hunter-gatherers who eat 50 different things. They are more exposed to diseases, because there are more of them in a small space. They are constantly in contact with domestic animals, so they are more exposed to diseases. Therefore, farming is not an improvement of life. Farmers live worse, harder and shorter lives than hunters. But they cannot live in any other way in the number that there are. So, it is a loop in which we got caught a long time ago and from which there is no return. Once you start producing food, when there are more of you, you can't go back to hunting and gathering without disaster. You can come back, but extinction will begin. Many people will die of hunger. This is what can happen even today if you cut off the electricity, and most of humanity will die out. What was the diet of those first farmers? Let's take for example the recipe for goulash, a very common dish in Central Southeastern Europe. Cut the beef shoulder into 1 centimeter cubes, and the smoked bacon into small cubes. Chop the onion finely, fry bacon. Add onion and fry until golden brown. Add the beef cubes and mix well. Add the tomato. Sprinkle with paprika. Mix well and add water. Season with cumin, marjoram, bay leaf, pepperoni and garlic and cook for about an hour. In the meantime, peel the potatoes and cut them into cubes. Add to the stew and cook for another 10 to 15 minutes. Mix the flour and a little water. Add to the soup and let it thicken. At the end, season with salt and pepper. Now remove potatoes, tomatoes, peppers and pepperoni from that recipe. They all came from the New World, after Christopher Columbus discovered that world for Europeans. Then throw out the spices, which mostly started to be used in ancient times and were the privilege of the wealthy. What do you have left? Meat that you cook in water, and the meat of an old animal, from which nothing can be obtained anymore. So, you have meat that you cook for hours in water, and that meat is rarely on the plate. Cereals and vegetables are mostly eaten in that early period of agriculture, and that's how most population have been eating for thousands of years. The most important early domesticates were indeed domesticated in Western Asia. Several types of cereals, goats and sheep. After that, there is intensive domestication of animals in other parts of the world. These people are clearly no more miserable than these West Asians, and they can also continue with this process of domestication after seeing that it is a way of life that brings them some advantages. Something is known for animals in other parts of the world. The domestication of cattle and pigs is a much more complicated story than it is with sheep and goats. It is likely that some cattle were also domesticated in Europe, Africa, and Southeast Asia. Pigs probably imported to Europe from the Middle East, so that they would also have been domesticated there. However, very soon the Europeans, who took these domesticates, realized that they were also wild pigs, so that these domestic breeds had an advantage over the imported ones. While the earliest domesticated plants in Europe were various cereals and lentils, which is also probably brought from outside. If America had not been discovered, the Old World would still be eating very badly. From corn to various tomatoes, peppers and other fruits and vegetables, none of that was there. The progress of agriculture and animal husbandry enabled greater food production. Domestic animals provided fertilizer. Fertilizer increased the yield of domestic plants. Animals began to be used for plowing. It also increased food production and allowed areas that were previously uncultivated to be cultivated. In the so-called Western linear pottery culture, once called the Danube culture, which spread north and south of the Danube, people at first cultivated only the soil that could be plowed with hand sticks and hoes. After 1,000 years, the oxen-drawn plow was introduced. This made it possible to cultivate harder soil with tough sod. Increased food production also led to an increase in the population. Farmers could have more children. Members of many hunter-gatherer communities travel frequently in search of food, but farmers must stay close to their fields and orchards. Thus, permanent habitat contributes to an increase in population density by enabling shorter periods between births of children. Among hunter-gatherers, a mother who moves from one camp to another can carry only one child, along with some of her possessions. She cannot afford to give birth to a second child until the first one is able to walk fast enough to keep up with the rest of the group and not hinder its progress. Between births of approximately 4 years, this was made possible by a combination of lactational amenorrhea, abstinence from sexual relations, infanticide, and abortion. In contrast, sedentary peoples, unencumbered by the problem of carrying large numbers of small children to distant places, can give birth to and raise as many children as they can feed. Among many agricultural peoples, the interval between births is about 2 years, which is half as long as among hunter-gatherers. A greater number of children resulted in the need to increase food production. This was possible only by improving agriculture and animal husbandry. It was no longer possible to return to the idyllic world of hunter-gatherers. Increasing population, improving agricultural techniques in the area of large rivers will lead to the emergence of cities, states, governments, and armies. Returning to the hunter-gatherer world was no longer possible. Agriculture, animal husbandry, and a large number of inhabitants also had one dangerous consequence: the appearance and spread of infectious diseases. It seems that indeed many, if not the vast majority of infectious diseases actually start with the shift to agriculture, simply because before that population densities were so low that infectious diseases could not even spread. In order for us to have a plague or a new flu, you have to have an area that is densely populated enough for that infection to spread. Therefore, the hunter-gatherers were in a much better position here. Another thing is that many infectious diseases have mutated from animal disease. It's not just a case of AIDS that passed from some monkeys there, but many other things. Surely many diseases are related to contact with animals, and higher population density have led to the emergence of infectious diseases in humans, and their easier spread. Overcrowding of animals was responsible for the rapid spread of animal diseases after they were domesticated. More and more of them lived together in cramped conditions. So that's probably how diseases came from animals. Measles most likely came from cattle, tuberculosis as well. Chickenpox was given to us either by cattle or other livestock, with related viruses. Influenza most likely came from ducks and pigs, whooping cough from pigs and dogs, and malaria from birds, most likely chickens and ducks. When we domesticated animals, we domesticated their diseases. Jared Diamond lists for stages in the evolution of human diseases from animal diseases. The first stages are illustrated by dozens of diseases, which we pick up here and there, directly from pets and domestic animals. Examples of such diseases are the Bartonella henselae disease, that was acquired from cats, leptospirosis from dogs, psittacosis from parrots and chickens, tuberculosis from cattle. We are similarly susceptible to wild animal diseases that are rarely transmitted to humans, like tularemia, which most often infects hunters while skinning wild rabbits. In this first stage, diseases cannot be transmitted from person to person. The second stage is more dangerous. In the second stage, the previously animal pathogen and microbe evolves to the point where it can be directly transmitted from human to human and thus cause an epidemic. However, an outbreak can die out for any of several reasons. It is stopped by modern medical measures, or it stops when everyone is infected, so they either become immune or they die. For example, a previously unknown fever called Onyong-Nyong fever appeared in 1959 in East Africa and spread until several million Africans were infected. It probably originated from a monkey virus and was transmitted to humans by mosquitoes. The new disease quickly disappeared, as the patients quickly recovered and became immune to repeated infection. Laughing sickness, or cure, was rampant in New Guinea. It was transmitted by cannibalism, and its causes were a slowly spreading virus, and the infection spread by eating corpses, more precisely, brains. All those affected by it would die. The disease disappeared when the Australian government established control over that part of the island in the late 1960s and eradicated cannibalism. The third stage in the evolution of the main diseases are the causative of diseases in animals that have evolved into the causative of human diseases and have not yet become extinct. So they may or may not become mass murderers of humanity. The future is very uncertain for Lassa fever, which is caused by a virus that most likely originated from rodents. This disease was first observed in Nigeria in 1969, where it caused a fatal and so contagious disease that Nigerian hospitals were closed even if only one case appeared. The future of AIDS is unknown, which originated from monkey viruses, and the first case of a sick person was recorded only in 1959. These are the final stages of the evolution of infectious diseases, the main or known epidemic diseases, which only affect humans. Agriculture and animal husbandry did not only bring diseases to the human world, they have also changed our environment